Here in the herd, we have 103 animals in milk in lactation. Therefore, we sought a feeding station. In 2022, we installed a station on each side. It keeps dispensing the diet while it is in contact with the ear tag sensor. When the animal leaves, that contact is interrupted, and the diet is no longer dispensed. Greater comfort was also provided by the sand bedding. Regarding management, there are 3 milkings per day. The total herd comprises approximately 200 animals. Average productivity is 51 liters. In recent years, the figures we have achieved are as follows: 2022, 42 liters; 2023, 44.4; 2024, 45.3.
This bucket, then, which we made to apply sand. I took a trip to Canada in 2017, and I saw this equipment there, which producers were using. Later, when I got back to Brazil, I approached a young man at a metalworking shop and said I wanted a piece of equipment, just like that.
And then last year we had the idea to implement a sound system to play classical music throughout the day.
We have been conducting analyses during each visit using a portable NIRS device, through which we analyze the silage, including both winter and summer silages. We also analyze the raw materials used.
So, for you to follow along, this is the difference in reading between one method and another. I will show it here. While this equipment is scanning the sample, it is in motion. This increases the total reading area by 40 times compared to simply having contact with the sample. This is why this equipment is increasingly gaining ground in the field and truly providing reliable results.
In the sprinkler system, both in the holding area and on the lanes, we have automatic cycles with 4 minutes of ventilation and 30 seconds of sprinkling. One distinguishing feature of this facility is that, in this position, there is no location where wind or rain enters. Therefore, we can leave it open because no rain gets in from that direction. And our main objective is for them to consume the greatest possible quantity of ration. So, when they reach 1.5% of consumption, weaning is carried out.
Jesse sent a message saying that he won't be making videos anymore because you haven't subscribed to the Santa Fe channel. So subscribe now, and he will continue recording on farms around the world.
Welcome everyone to the Santa Fe channel. Today I am at Nono Emílio Farm, a farm with 103 lactating animals, an average of 51 liters, a feeding booth, which is something different here on our channel.
This property began in the 1950s with my grandfather, Emilio. Thus, the name of the farm is Nono Emílio. From then on, my grandmother had 1 or 2 cows, just for personal use, you know. She would milk them to make cheese for the family's subsistence. My mother arrived here on the property in the 1970s, and as her inheritance, her father gave her a cow as well. Since then, production started to increase, but the greatest production increment was in 2010-2012 when I completed my final project for my agribusiness administration degree, in which I combined the income from swine and dairy cattle that we had at the time. After performing the feasibility analysis, I saw that it was the milk that was paying the bills. So, from 2012 onward, we began to invest heavily in this production, growing year by year and reaching the numbers we have today.
Here we have the holding area, a more spacious holding area with a rapid exit double 8 system equipped with a subway. There is a veterinary care and shoot area where we perform hoof trimming. Here we also have the confinement section, which consists of a freestall system with sand bedding. This is where the primiparous and multiparous cows are kept, and they are divided mainly by age, but receive a single dietary regimen. Their supplementation is primarily provided with feed delivered to the stalls. In addition to the lactating cows, we also have the shed, where the prepartum and dry cows are kept in a compost barn system. The main reason for using 2 systems was to offer an alternative allowing higher stocking density per area in the free stall section, while providing maximum comfort with sand bedding. In the compost barn, cows remain in a more spacious and comfortable environment during the dry and prepartum periods. Therefore, we work in this sector with wood shavings. Here, management involves 3 milkings per day, We milk at 14:30, 22:30, and 6:30. We always start with Group 1, which consists of the primiparous cows, followed by Group 2. This is how the management routines are carried out throughout the day. I am mainly responsible for herd management, and whenever necessary, I also assist with the milking operations and general management tasks. I supervise and support the staff and employees. For feeding, we have a person dedicated exclusively to nutrition management, while those who perform the milking are also responsible for manual cleaning using carts and for leveling and cleaning the sand beds. Hydrated lime is applied to the sand beds 3 times daily, and the sand is replenished once per week. In addition to these responsibilities, I also carry out hoof trimming of the animals. Until now, we had conducted training for the employees, but over time, as they left, this training was no longer renewed. As a result, I am currently responsible for hoof trimming. We perform hoof trimming on these animals between 130 and 150 days in lactation, and again at drying off, so each animal receives hoof trimming approximately twice a year. One practice I discontinued this year is the use of foot baths. Since we have not experienced further problems with dermatitis or any hoof issues, I have gradually reduced the frequency of foot baths, extending the interval to every 14 days, then every 21 days, and now I am no longer performing them. Based on my observations during hoof trimming, I have not noticed any significant difference. I believe that nutrition is adequate, the diet and all nutritional levels are appropriate, and as a result, we have achieved good hoof health, eliminating the need to use foot baths. The cooling system, without a doubt, plays a significant role in ensuring animal comfort, encouraging them to lie down more frequently. The sand bedding system is ideal for providing this type of comfort. Until 2019, we maintained a group with rubber mat bedding and noted a high incidence of hock injuries. Cows lied down less often, longevity was reduced. In other words, the overall health of these animals was compromised, leading to increased culling rates. Therefore, it was always necessary to anticipate culling, which resulted in considerable losses. I believe that having a cooling system, ensuring animal comfort, and performing appropriate hoof trimming are ideal for achieving the best possible outcomes. For some time, we performed hoof trimming for the entire herd every 4 or 5 months. However, during each of these herd-based trimming sessions, we frequently encountered cases of femoral lameness, which led to the loss of some animals. Consequently, we arrived at the idea, almost out of necessity, to initiate preventive hoof trimming right here on the property, carried out by ourselves. Currently, our herd consists of 103 animals in milking and lactation, and a total of approximately 200 animals in the entire herd. Average milk yield stands at 51 liters. The figures we have achieved in recent years were 42 liters in 2022, 44.4 liters in 2023, 45.3 liters in 2024, 2024, and this year, I believe we will finish with an average of approximately 48 liters. At the beginning of the year, our average was not very high, but I expect that next year it will reach close to 50 liters. Over the last 3 months, we have managed to achieve an average production of 50.5 liters. The solids average 3.3% protein and 3.7 to 3.8% fat. While these are not particularly high solids content values, in terms of milk volume, which is the basis for our payment, the higher yield results in greater productivity. With respect to reproduction figures, our conception rate was around 35% in 2022 and 2023. Now, reviewing the last year, we have achieved rates of 41% to 42%. We do not have an exact value for pregnancy rate, since the herd management software does not provide an accurate figure, partially because the service rate is quite high. This results in a somewhat inflated pregnancy rate value, but it remains above 30 to 35%. Here, we carry out reproduction management and perform pregnancy diagnosis every 28 days in partnership with a veterinarian. Our main protocol is insemination, beginning at 60 days postpartum, which is typically performed by monitoring estrus using the activity monitoring collar we use from Science Hub. Other timed artificial insemination protocols are rarely applied, and only in cases where a cow has a cystic ovary, is not cycling properly, or has a substantially extended days in milk period that necessitates intervention for insemination. we mainly use prostaglandin at 60 days when necessary, and for heifers, we use prostaglandin plus estrus detection patch. Thus, administration of prostaglandin and the patch is always based on estrus observation, and inseminations are primarily performed by this method. In 2022, we made two main investments, one of which was the cooling system. We currently have cooling in the alleys in all groups, Group 1, Group 2, dry cows, and prepartum cows. Regarding the cooling system, when the temperature exceeds 20 degrees Celsius, cooling is implemented in the holding area and supplemented by alley cooling. In addition to the holding area cooling, the cows are brought here, cooled down, and are cooled again at 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Thus, when temperatures are above 20 degrees Celsius, cows receive 5 cooling cycles per day. When temperatures exceed 30 degrees Celsius, there are 6 cycles. At noon, I run the cooling system in the alleys for 45 minutes to an hour on each side, so the cows can cool down here. This was an investment that, since 2022, has delivered substantial results. Previously, we had a cooling system, but it was inefficient. The current system, by contrast, has brought significant improvements in productivity, reproductive outcomes, and welfare, as expected and described in numerous scientific studies. In terms of feeding, we have a single diet in the feed bunks, where we mainly use wheat straw, extruded feed, canola, conventional soybean meal, corn silage, wheat straw, cottonseed, and a mix of corn with minerals and other additives. To supplement this diet, as we were experiencing difficulties with supplementing the postpartum and peak yield cows, we sought an automated feeding station. In 2023, we installed one feeding station on each side, and in 2024, we installed an additional one due to the significant competition within the groups. Previously, we had a single station with an auger dispensing the same feed for both groups, postpartum and peak lactation. Since this feed is highly palatable, the animals tend to push each other to have access. Therefore, we needed to add a second station and use the opportunity to provide a different type of feed. Thus, the feed for the postpartum and peak groups was separated. Nevertheless, there are still occasional problems with competition, which is one of the negative aspects of this open system. However, at the same time, we observe significant improvement. After the installation in 2023, this system yielded a return of 2 to 5 liters of milk per animal for each kilogram of feed provided. Additionally, in the postpartum period, we noticed a reduction in cases of cysts and anestrus. Reproductive performance improved, and the animals lost less body condition during this phase. Therefore, I believe that at a time when we were struggling to supplement, this system allowed us to achieve better balance and adjustment. If it is possible to further divide the groups into postpartum and peak, I believe the results would be equal or superior, because in the feeding station, feed is dispensed as long as the ear tag sensor detects the animal's presence. When the animal leaves, the feed supply stops. However, they do not have the same consumption frequency as in the traditional feed bunk. Therefore, this supplementation achieves close to 100% utilization, but it is not as effective as it would be with group-allocated feeding, in my opinion. In this setup, the stations are supplied by augers connected to silos. There is a postpartum feed silo and a peak lactation feed silo. These augers feed the stations, depositing the feed into the black tubes above the station, and an internal auger inside the station dispenses the feed. Each dispensing pulse is calibrated, as the system does not weigh feed, but rather releases a predetermined mass per pulse according to the feed's density. This calibration is set in the DelPro software, determining how much concentrate each cow is allowed to consume. Here, intake ranges from 1 kilogram up to 8 or 9 kilograms, depending on productivity, as managed by DelPro. Regarding diet formulation, we have the assistance of Ranieri, who monitors especially the stations, where achieving a balance between the amount of fiber in the total diet and the concentrate provided is challenging. Therefore, the forage NDF is higher in the main feed bunk, allowing us to use slightly more concentrate in the station without issues. Ranieri's work is particularly valuable because he assesses fiber fractions, also through compositional analyses, to ensure that diet software values match what is actually being provided.
Many people are interested in how we formulate diets for animals in a system that uses feeding stations. The TMR is composed of a quite simple, commonly used diet. Corn silage as the main forage, with some cottonseed as supplemental fiber, and wheat straw. We also use some feed prepared on the farm. Here we work with approximately 28% starch, 16% crude protein, and 22% physically effective fiber. The fiber content is slightly higher to ensure sufficient fiber supply for rumination in animals fed at the feeding station. One of the main interests when using data from a high-producing farm is the animal diet. This farm is notable for using a feeding station. What is different in this case? Today, the TMR consists of forages and grains, and all mineral and vitamin requirements are met within this ration. However, since we have the possibility to benefit recently calved animals and those at peak production, we support these cows as follows. The base diet is very similar for all groups. The difference lies in the additives used. The decision to use these additives is currently based on scientific literature as well as cost effectiveness. Due to the high cost of additives, we prioritize certain additives in some groups. For example, in the postpartum group, additional supplements provided include lysine and methionine. We also use a choline phosphate to promote hepatic fat mobilization. A specific ionophore, monensin, is also used at a slightly lower dose to avoid reducing intake, since the starch content in the postpartum diet is already moderate. This is the main difference. Our main goal is to support the gastrointestinal microbiota and the entire digestive system for maximum dry matter intake immediately after calving. After this phase, lasting around 20 to 30 days, we transition to the peak lactation phase. The key difference in this diet is that choline and methionine are discontinued and palm fat is introduced. This is essentially the difference. Currently, we do not work with the system as a whole by evaluating crude protein. We work by closing the ammonia requirement. We are also working with starch levels slightly higher than those conventionally used at approximately 29%. This approach takes into account the rate of fermentation and the safety provided by these additives. Currently, this particular farm allocates roughly 35% of its costs to feeding. Considering the farm's total cost relative to revenue, this represents approximately 55%. This demonstrates the system's viability due to the high productivity attainable, which is precisely achieved by being able to segment these groups. One of the principal challenges for the nutritionist in high-producing herds lies in the risk associated with operating with such a concentrated diet. We endeavor to minimize variations in the feeds used as much as possible by conducting regular analyses. In the case of this farm, analyses are conducted at each visit using a portable NIRS, analyzing the silage, including both winter and summer silage. Raw materials such as soybean meal and ground maize are also analyzed. Furthermore, after these analyses, an assessment of the TMR is performed along the feeding line. For example, here we collect samples along the feed bunk, conducting approximately 3 samplings on each side to assess whether consistency has been achieved in terms of ingredient mixing quality. Currently, our greatest challenge in this field is ensuring that the matrix in the formulation software effectively corresponds to what is actually delivered on the farm. The implementation of periodic analyses of these feeds allows us to mitigate these risks. Here, we will demonstrate our typical procedure on farms. First, we analyze the silage. We then perform shaker sieving to measure the physically effective fiber in this silage. These results are entered into the software, which is used to formulate the TMR diet. Subsequently, a further analysis of the TMR is performed to ensure that what was formulated is indeed being provided to the animals. I have already placed a portion here. I will activate the device and instruct the application to perform the scan. Now, having obtained the result, which in this case indicated 18% crude protein, 25.8% starch, 18% ADF, 28% NDF, 38.7% CNF, and 41% dry matter. We will save this result as a PDF file and upload it to the AI platform for feedback concerning the evaluation of this material.
I am Katiuska, co-owner of the Lab Nutris Laboratory and a chemist. I will briefly explain the sample receipt process and laboratory procedures. We receive samples both via carrier services and by post. Most samples arrive early in the morning. The process begins with the receipt of the samples. Amanda is responsible for opening the boxes to access the samples and initiate their registration in the system. We also receive samples delivered directly by clients at the laboratory, accompanied by the corresponding form, which is essential for system traceability. Once the sample is received, depending on the type of analysis requested, the processing time varies. For NIR analysis, results are released within 2 business days, and for wet chemistry, within 7 days. Therefore, once the sample has arrived and the boxes have been opened, it is then entered into the system. In addition to near analyses, we perform a full range of analyses using wet chemistry. Should any process control or model verification of near calibrations be required, or if the client specifically requests chemical analysis, we provide these services in the laboratory. We conduct general analyses including ether extract, fiber, mineral matter, among others.
Here, I will present a brief overview of the process from the moment the sample sent from the field is received through to the homogenization and preparation for drying. We have received the sample here, sent by Ezekiel. One important point is that regardless of the sample volume we receive, it is always homogenized. This ensures that the results obtained truly reflect the original sampling in the field. Therefore, every sample is opened and homogenized again. Irrespective of any homogenization that may have been performed in the field, all samples are homogenized. From this, a fraction is taken for drying. During the drying process, it is necessary to record the weights to determine the moisture content of the dry matter. At this stage, a fraction is carefully withdrawn to prevent sample segregation or selection, a process that could otherwise introduce variability in results. Approximately 200 to 250 grams are selected from the sample. The weight is recorded and the sample is then sent to the drying oven. We work with a circulating oven equipped with a heat pump, which dehydrates the sample without heating it. This process is essential to preserve the quality of the product. In essence, dry air passes over the sample and removes the moisture without degrading it or affecting the analytical results. Currently, this drying process is recognized as the most suitable by the leading laboratories worldwide. We are among the few laboratories in Brazil adopting this method precisely because it ensures that the final result provided to technicians and producers is as reliable as possible. The sample remains in the oven for approximately 8 to 10 hours, with the entire process monitored by sensors. Throughout the night, the oven automatically turns on and off as necessary. In the event of any problems or interruptions, safety sensors guarantee that by the following morning, the sample has reached the minimum moisture level required for grinding and subsequent NIR analysis. When the sample is removed from the oven, it retains a residual moisture, resulting in approximately 98% dry matter. Thus, a minimal amount of moisture remains in the product. The sample is then sent to the mills. For forage samples, we use knife mills with a particle size of less than 1 millimeter, which ensures optimal analysis with the NIR equipment. The finer the particle size, the better the results. We employ different types of mills depending on the product to be analyzed, with specific mills for diets, grains, and another specifically for forages. Approximately 90% of the volume analyzed in our laboratory for animal nutrition is processed with near-infrared technology known as NIR. Currently, this is the most widely used technology in animal nutrition, primarily due to its low cost, practicality, rapidity, and reliability of results. The equipment we use is certified. We operate in network with Erlan Laboratory, one of the largest laboratory networks in the world, to which we are affiliated here in Brazil. This affiliation provides even greater confidence in our results and processes, as well as in the information we deliver to the field. Basically, after passing through the mill and reaching particle sizes smaller than 1 millimeter, the sample is homogenized once more. This describes the reading method. Essentially, NIR interprets information based on organic bonds. Every organic substance emits a unique vibration, much like a fingerprint. This is what the equipment detects. It captures information about the molecular vibrations, and based on a database called a spectrum, it interprets the result. The key information retrieved is the spectral response of the sample. From this data, we derive important analytical parameters such as protein, fat, fiber quality, starch content, starch digestibility, and all other metrics available through the calibration. A tool that has been gaining increasing prominence in the animal nutrition sector is the so-called portable NAR devices. Here we have the traditional benchtop equipment, but we also have the distribution and representation of devices such as the Proxy Scout. This equipment is specifically designed for on-field analysis, allowing the technician during a farm visit to evaluate main products, key parameters, perform diet adjustments, inspections, and ongoing monitoring of diets. The main difference between the forms of laboratory service provision with this equipment in the field lies in the method of product reading. This equipment analyzes the product in natura. Therefore, it deals with a non-uniform particle size and mixtures. In the laboratory, by contrast, we do not take into account whether the material was poorly processed, whether the grain is whole or processed. Everything is transformed into a single powder. Therefore, repeatability within the laboratory is able to provide a much broader range of analyzed parameters than if you compare it to this equipment in the field. So whether the grain is whole or ground, the laboratory will deliver the total starch content regardless of whether or not it has been processed. This equipment comes with an accessory that greatly helped to improve repeatability in the field. When we talk about the reader, we are actually talking about a 1 centimeter reader. Generally, field equipment performs analyses in this manner, directly in contact with the sample, and often the reading area of the product is quite restricted because the analyzed phase is very small. This accessory, called a rotator, greatly amplifies the reading area if you compare it simply to the equipment in direct contact. This is the reading cell, which is placed in contact with the sample. Here, the scanner performs the reading while the sample is being homogenized and its reading area expanded. Thus, you can observe the difference in reading between one approach and the other. While the equipment is scanning the sample, it is moving, which increases the total reading area by 40 times compared to simply having direct contact with the sample. For this reason, this equipment is gaining increasing ground in the field and truly providing reliable results. It is important to emphasize that the purpose of this equipment is not to replace the service provided by the laboratory. This equipment will provide you with the main information required in daily field activities, so it will provide protein, fiber, NDF, ADF, starch, and the main parameters that the nutritionist needs to verify diets and nutritional levels of silage and pre-dried forages. In the laboratory, however, we provide a much more comprehensive report, so when a fine-tuned assessment or a more in-depth verification on the farm is required, the recommended approach is always to use the laboratory service. This tool is particularly useful for routine activities such as diet formulation, assessing mixing, or checking if feed bunk line distribution is consistent with the formulation and with what is provided to the animals. In these scenarios, this tool is exceptional and will deliver precisely this, to verify whether what your nutrition software indicates is in fact what the animal is receiving. When you need a more in-depth analysis to assess other parameters, you send this sample to the laboratory to obtain a more comprehensive report. If you would like to know more about this tool, contact Lab Nutris. We would be pleased to present and explain in further detail how this platform operates.
Here I have an open report of a corn silage sample, where we verify and analyze several parameters to see whether they are consistent with the sample received in the laboratory and with the information recorded from the initial stage, since the sample's arrival. Subsequently, we analyze protein, starch, and compare results to CNF, covering the entire bromatological profile of each parameter. This allows for evaluation and comparison from the moment of arrival at the laboratory up to report delivery to the client.
We have been long-standing partners of Lab Nutris, a laboratory that provides us with great confidence in the results and accuracy of its analyses, and together with them, we have achieved many positive outcomes in the field.
In the cubicle area, we experienced a side effect, so to speak, a problem where, due to competition in an open system, stress among the animals began to arise. This was particularly evident among the multiparous cows, where we observed animals injuring each other. Last year, we had the idea of implementing a sound system to play classical music during the day. It has now been operating for nearly a year, playing classical music, mainly piano, cello, and violin pieces, by well-known composers such as Beethoven, Mozart, among others, from 6 a.m. until midnight. The results observed include a substantial reduction in animal stress. The animals are no longer as aggressive towards each other as they once were. However, no perceptible changes were noted in behavior in the milking parlor or in productivity. Nevertheless, herd behavior within the freestall has improved considerably. Currently, the music is not being played due to YouTube copyright restrictions, which can cause interruptions. However, as we move forward, we intend to resume daily music use as was customary. In the compost barn, we have prepartum cows grouped in mixed batches, with nulliparous and multiparous individuals housed together, as well as dry cows located on the other side. Each time we dry off cows, they remain there for the entire dry period, after which they are moved to the prepartum group. Among the dry cows are also pregnant heifers from the 5th month of gestation onward, who are transferred here to better acclimate them to the environment and to participate in the cooling system. The same cooling measures applied during free stall hours and to lactating cows are also implemented here for the dry animals. During the prepartum period, cows remain in this area for 21 to 25 days, 21 days for nulliparous, and 25 days for multiparous individuals. They are continually provided with chopped wheat straw and receive an anionic diet with regular urine pH monitoring to assess diet efficacy. During the dry period, the diet primarily consists of wheat silage, soybean meal, and minerals, and vitamin E supplementation is provided to ensure an intake of 1,000 international units per day for all animals during the dry period. This guarantees high-quality nutrition, preventing excessive loss or gain of body condition score during the dry period, so that animals reach the prepartum phase consuming adequate feed, which in turn ensures that they continue to eat well postpartum and do not encounter ketosis or other metabolic problems. The bedding in this system is therefore a compost barn, where it is turned daily with a subsoiler. I believe this to be a much more comfortable system for animals during the dry period, providing them with better conditions, and also for the prepartum period, offering more space at calving time. We do not have individual calving pens, and as a consequence, we have a minor issue with cryptosporidium. To prevent this problem in the Becerra, we use halofuginone as a preventive measure. Otherwise, everything is very well managed. We have no issues with metritis. Only rarely do we encounter cases of retained placenta. However, as the animal's immunization is excellent, they recover smoothly, and we do not observe many other problems such as abomasal displacement. The incidence is very low, about 1 case per year at most. When it does occur, It is typically due to a management or dietary error, which can easily be overlooked during the dry or prepartum period if feed intake is not adequately ensured. Using silage from different silo locations or making a mistake during feed distribution can lead to intake variation, dietary inconsistencies, and consequently postpartum metabolic problems. However, these aspects are generally well controlled during the dry and prepartum periods, and operations have proceeded smoothly. In the sprinkler system, both in the holding pen and along the alleys, we have an automatic cycle in which ventilation is activated for 4 minutes, followed by sprinkling for 30 seconds. Regarding the milking routine, we use a foam pre-dipping containing lactic acid. Subsequently, we implement a double pre-dipping. First, we apply the foam, then we perform forest stripping with 3 streams into a black bottom strip cup. After this, the foam is dried with a paper towel, and the teat cup clusters are attached. After the cluster is released by the automatic detacher, we carry out individual post-milking teat disinfection. We have observed a significant improvement in somatic cell count, SCC, currently at 130,000 cells per milliliter. In 2016, the SCC was approximately 600,000 cells per milliliter, and each year we have been able to further reduce these values. In terms of mastitis types and incidence, we currently maintain an incidence of less than 1%. Our main challenge is specifically Escherichia coli. There are no longer issues related to contagious mastitis. Cases are exclusively environmental in origin. Currently, we do not use vaccination against Escherichia coli, relying solely on therapeutic treatments following identification. As to the reason for using or not using immunization strategies, in the past we did test a type of vaccine, but the severity of cases did not change significantly. Nowadays, the adopted protocol consists of immediate antibiotic treatment upon mastitis identification, even though recommendations often suggest supportive therapy alone. This approach has resulted in much faster recovery. With supportive therapy alone, the cow usually takes nearly a week to recover, whereas with immediate intervention, at the first symptoms of environmental mastitis, involving the administration of oxytocin, intramammary injectable antibiotics, along with supportive therapy, we observe that within 3 days the animal is able to return to its previous production level.
Here we replace the bedding once a week. At present, the cost is between 2 reais and 2 reais and 40 centavos per cow per day, corresponding to approximately 15 to 20 kilograms of sand per day. The management consists of removing the driest portion of sand to the back and moving the wettest to the front, thereby reducing contamination. This barn originally had 50 stalls, with flooring and rubber mattresses. Over time, we observed a high incidence of hock injuries, which led us to remove the mattresses and switch to sand bedding. This change alone resulted in an additional calf per cow. Because sand contains no organic matter, it reduces the proliferation of diseases. The barn currently measures 31 meters by 37 meters. Stall size in Lot 1, primiparous cows, is 1.15 meters by 1.80 meters, and in Lot 2, multiparous cows, it is 1.20 meters by 1.20 meters, 1.80 meters. Before the adoption of sand bedding, our SCC ranged from 600,000 to 700,000 cells per milliliter. Today, it is around 200,000, and cow welfare has also improved. On hotter days, cows now lie down more often, unlike before, when the heat retention of the rubber mattress deterred them from lying down. Furthermore, the fine sawdust used previously was easily blown away by the fans, discouraging resting behavior. If the cost of sawdust at that time were equivalent to today's prices, it would likely have reached approximately 1 real per cow per day, including lime. We developed a scoop specifically designed for distributing sand. During a trip to Canada in 2017, I observed this type of equipment being used on local farms. Upon my return to Brazil, I approached a metal worker and described the device and its intended function, as handling sand is labor-intensive and impractical with conventional scoops and shovels. Drawing upon what I had seen, I provided a model, and since 2019, That piece of equipment has been in operation here, greatly facilitating our work.
Here, we are in part of the facility that used to be the milking parlor, a herringbone layout, previously housing the milk cooler. This was also the original stable where lactating cows were kept for feeding. This area was utilized for approximately 20 years and marked the beginning of larger-scale milk production on the farm. As of 2013, we housed up to 45 animals in this location. New freestall facilities were built in 2015, along with the milking parlor, and since then, investments have continued annually. The former silage silos are still standing. Currently, these structures are used for raising replacement heifers from 8 to 11 months of age. After this, the heifers are transferred to other facilities where they remain from 12 months until they join the dry cow group in parturition. As previously unmentioned, insemination is performed from 400 days of age, with the aim of achieving first calving at approximately 23 to 24 months. We have successfully maintained an average calving age of 24 months. Here in the calf facility, when cows in the prepartum area give birth, we bring the heifers here. The first protocol we use is umbilical disinfection with iodine. We perform this procedure there and, subsequently, repeat it here. Drying powder, specifically lime, which is used to dry the animals, is applied, and we also use the heat lamp to warm the environment. This facility was formerly a pigsty, and we renovated it to accommodate the heifers. Previously, the area housed 10 pigs with slatted flooring, so we installed a partition in the middle, allowing each heifer to remain in its own individual pen. Even so, they have a drier space due to the slatted floor, which offers the advantage of underfloor ventilation without direct exposure. Therefore, our incidence of pneumonia is practically zero. We do not lose heifers, nor do we encounter problems with pneumonia. Diarrhea is well controlled. Our main challenge was cryptosporidium, which we managed to control with Loture, and flies are something we have effectively managed using mosquito screens. We installed screening around the entire perimeter, and, as a result, we no longer have the fly issues during summer that were prevalent in previous years. The heifers remain here from birth, and we provide colostrum within the first hours of life. When they do not voluntarily ingest it, we utilize an esophageal tube to ensure they consume 10% of their body weight in colostrum. They receive milk replacer until 60 days of age, or until they are able to consume 1.5% of their body weight in concentrate. Here, they have ad libitum access to water in buckets and to pelleted concentrate. Our main objective is to maximize concentrate intake. Thus, weaning is carried out once they reach the 1.5% intake threshold, after which they proceed to the next production stages. Up to 3 months of age, and they continue receiving pelleted concentrate. Thereafter, they transition to a meal form, protein-enriched concentrate with wheat silage, and they remain on this diet until they join the insemination category. At this stage, they stop receiving the protein meal and are provided with a mineral supplement with mycotoxin binder and soybean meal. These components are mixed in a total mixed ration, TMR, with wheat silage and a small portion of corn silage, depending on the characteristics of each silage. In this way, we balance the diet according to the specific requirements of each category and ensure suitability for each animal. Dehorning is performed using a gas-heated hot iron. We began using this method a month and a half ago and have observed very satisfactory results. The animals appear calmer and more comfortable, as a sedative and local anesthetic are used. Consequently, this procedure is much more sustainable and significantly less painful for the animals compared to the previous method, which involved using paste to wear down the horns. The feed preparation area contains cottonseed, conventional soybean meal, a blend of canola and extruded products, a mix of maize with other additives, and a mineral supplement. In the background, wheat straw can be seen. A distinguishing feature of this area is its positioning, which prevents wind and rain from entering. Therefore, it is possible to leave the area open, as no rain enters from that direction. This greatly facilitates handling, eliminating the need to open doors, and also allows sufficient headroom for tipper trucks to unload materials more easily. In the silage area, we currently operate with only one concreted silo. Over the years, and possibly this year, we plan to concrete 2 additional silos. All silos already have concrete floors, but I refer here specifically to concreting the walls as well, to facilitate management. This year, we succeeded in producing better quality silage, which consequently resulted in improved productivity. We use plastic sheeting on the sides, an oxygen barrier, and a surface sheet. The perimeter is sealed with gravel. We use a loader bucket to remove the silage, and the staff are always instructed to remove the silage uniformly, even when using the loader bucket, to avoid excessive movement, the ingress of oxygen, and subsequent spoilage of the silage.